Hey everybody, it's Miss Kiki. Thank you for tuning into my channel. So today we're going to start on chapter 2. Loyalty ain't a word, it's a lifestyle. And of course, we are reading Jeezy's new book, Adversity for Sale, You Gotta Believe. So here we go. Don't forget to like, and if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to my channel. So chapter 2, Loyalty ain't a word, it's a lifestyle. My older cousins were legends in my family. They lived in a big house on a nice plot of land in Decatur, just outside of East Atlanta. My cousin, Cuzzo, bought that house for my auntie, and it was beautiful, tall, and tucked way back in a nice neighborhood with the long driveway. My dad would take my sister and me up to see them sometimes, and at the time, it was the biggest house I'd ever seen. Cuzzo was the oldest, and he was a pretty boy, real smooth with the ladies, and he knew how to dress. He was also on trend. Black was a little younger, and he was really into music. Really, they both were, but whereas Cuzzo was more interested in the business side, Black studied the art. He was a music head and a DJ too, so he was always up on the latest artists and songs. He had his DJ set up in the garage, and whenever we go up to see them, I'd always sit out there and watch him practice mixing. Everything about it was dope to me, and I loved watching him do his thing. And then one day, when I was still young, he let me get on. We'd been out in that garage all day when he started powering down, like, that's it, bro, I'm out. He must have seen the look on my face as he was about to hit the lights because I didn't even have to ask. You want to mess around a little bit while I'm gone? Man, what? Listen, he didn't have to ask me twice. Black laughed and turned everything back on. Just don't scratch my shit, he said, and then he was gone. You want to talk about being in a happy place? I was in heaven. This wasn't some broke down knockoff Alpine I swiped from old Mr. Russell's shop. This was a real deal, top of the line DJ setup with crates full of the hottest records out on deck. You already know I stayed in that garage all night mixing JJ Fast, Supersonic, into Salt and Pepper, Push It, and Africa Bambaataa in the Soul Sonic Forces Planet Rock, or trying to anyway, and on and on and on. Of course, I didn't really know what I was doing at first, but I was determined to learn. Whenever we went to Decatur after that, I head straight to the garage, and if my cousin didn't have those turntables tied up, I'd jump on and get to work and practice, practice, practice. There was another reason I loved being in that garage, though, the cars. My cousin stayed in new whips. I'm talking the Eddie Bauer Explorer with the leather interior, the crazy ass Nissan 300X, ZXs, all that. I saw every single one of them in my cousin's garage first, and everything was always rimmed up and tricked out. They brought 10 to 15 grand on top of whatever they paid for the car just to make sure their shit was extra tight. I'm telling you, my cousins were fresh as hell. They were part of the first generation running around Atlanta with that dope boy swag, doing it up, giving cats like Deion Sanders and Dominique Wilkins a run for their money in the clubs, which makes perfect sense that that's exactly what they were, straight up dope boys. And in the early 1990s, my cousins were getting paid. I always like to say I'm third generation, third coast, meaning I'm just the third generation of my family that wasn't born into American slavery. And instead of moving up to other big northern cities during the Great Migration, my family stayed right where they were in the deep, deep South. My family is from the heart of the Black Belt, the cradle of cotton production. For 200 years, my people, our people, literally slaved away on plantations just down the road from the Ville. growing and harvesting the crop that helped transform some rebellious ass British colonies into a global empire. But before me, there was no generational wealth in my family. There was no rich auntie or uncle waiting in the wings to swoop in and help cover the bills or pay for college when the time came. Nobody had connections at the admissions office or led on the internship to help us on our way. All we had was each other and the hood. And even though the hood came, and even though the hood I came up in was literally built right on top of the very same land that my people worked to make this country filthy rich, all my people, our people, ever had to show for it was generational trauma and widespread persistent poverty and pain. And then when crack came along, it was like pouring gasoline on the whole shit. Whoosh. Crack set the hood on fire, and it hasn't been the same since. I don't think I'd be where I am today if it wasn't for the basketball courts. They were right across the street from my grandmother's house, and even though there wasn't much of them, they were our Rucker Park. Every Sunday, all the best basketball players from all over the county would come through the hoop, and the whole hood would come out to watch. It was like the main event. And whenever my cousins were in town, they'd pull up to those courts like Magic and Kareem in their prime. And not because they were really hooping like that either, but because of how they were balling in the streets. They hop out of whatever they were riding in, rims gleaming, jewelry shining, clothes fresh as hell, finger waves in their hair, some fine ass thing on their arm, and their pockets on swole. Showtime. I was born in 1977, so I was just a kid when the crack era really popped off. I remember being 8, 9 years old and walking to school and seeing the little empty baggies on the ground or hearing so and so's mom is a crackhead and things like that. But I was too young to understand what was really going on. I didn't know anything about drug use or addiction and the toll those things could make on a community. All I knew was that my cousins were getting money, and it was like Christmas whenever they came to town. We could eat the food we wanted to eat. All the kids had money for ice cream and Gatorade, and we have a big family cookout in my grandmother's front yard. Everybody would be happy, and it was always a good vibe. And then they leave, and all the good energy would be gone. So whenever my cousins were in town, I'd be posted up at the park watching them do their thing. And they weren't the only hustlers out there either. There were other cats that would come through from other cities and towns, and they all link up with my cousins and some of the local guys and do what they had to do. Things would get live on the court, but I was always way more interested in the plays my cousins and them were running on the sidelines. And I spent a whole lot of Sundays back then in my front row seat trying to soak up their game. And one of the first lessons I learned was one of the most valuable lessons of all: stay loyal and keep your motherfucking mouth shut. Remember when I said bloodhound for the bread? I just smell money on Thug Motivation 101? Yeah, well, that's real. Ever since I was a kid, I had six, I blah, blah, blah. Sorry, y'all. Ever since I was a kid, I've had 6 cents when it comes to cash. I'll admit, that's another reason why I always love going to my cousin's house in Decatur. The bread. It helped that my cousin kept any cash that he had lying around the crib in a couple of regular spots. So once I found those, I'd wait until the coast was clear and take my little taste. I get a grand here or a grand there. It was a lot of money to me at the time, but it wasn't shit to them. Put it this way: when you're skimming a rack or two from a $500,000 stuffed in the sofa, nobody ever knows. After a while, I started to think I was slick, and then I got caught. It was the summer between fifth and sixth grade, and I've been staying with them for weeks. But summer was over, and it was time to go back to the hood. Their sister had just had a baby and she set up the nursery upstairs right next to her room. I've been scoping the house the whole trip, but all the regular stash spots were bare. Maybe they finally noticed they'd been coming up a little short. Either way, I decided to make one last sweep, and that's when I found the bag. It was in the crib, peeking out from under the blanket. When I saw it, I was like, oh shit. And then I did something that I still don't understand to this day. Instead of taking my normal little piece, I took the whole bag. There I was, 12 years old, can't drive, and hours away from home. That was that was one of those rare instances when I definitely didn't have a plan. I took the bag downstairs and stuffed it under the couch, and then I sat down to wait for my aunt to finish up whatever she was doing to take me home. Waiting for her was like watching the clock at school. Tick, tick, tick. When Cuzzo noticed the bag was missing, I heard him holler at his brother in the garage like, "Yo, what happened to the bag in the crib?" Black cut the music, and from my seat on the couch, I heard Cuzzo ask him again. "Shit, I put it in there," Black said, walking into the kitchen. Cuzzo was like, "Well, it's not in there now." I could tell he was getting hot, but Black didn't seem all that concerned. "Maybe sis moved," he said. "Man, why the fuck would she do that?" "I don't know." Shit, Black said. "Maybe because it was in the way of the baby." "Well, where she put it then?" Black was like, "Fuck it, I know." "Do I look like, how the fuck would I know? Do I look like her?" "No, you look like the dumb motherfucker that just lost the bag." Black didn't appreciate that, and they started really going at it. Meanwhile, I was sitting on the couch keeping my mouth shut. The way I was looking at it, if I made it out of there with the bag, that was on them. But that was one big if. Then Black was like, "Yo, matter of fact, my beeper was in the bag. Call my beeper." My ears shot up. Cuzzo picked up the kitchen phone, and sure enough, beep, 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 right under my ass. Man, those motherfuckers almost killed me over that shit, I swear. Looking back, I really don't know how I made it back to the hood in one piece, but I guess I was still young, so they decided to give me a pass. It was the only one I'd need. I really didn't do that shit no more. As much time as I spent in Atlanta with them, my cousin spent way more time in Hawkinsville with us. I really couldn't understand it at the time. Why would you want to kick it in the country? Why would you want to kick it in the country when you had the whole city at your feet? When I got older and got in the game myself, I understood. The big city has its perks, but there's lots of money to be made in the small towns. In Atlanta, they were fighting over the same turf as everyone else, but they were running things in the Ville. Not only that, but because Hawkinsville functions almost like a hub for all those other small towns. My cousins could come down with all their work, post up at my auntie's house and do their thing. Less competition plus less stress plus more bread equals easy money. That's business 101. When you control the market, you control the price. And that's when you rack in the dough. So that's another lesson I learned from them. But that one came later after I was way more advanced. That first one, though, stay loyal and keep your motherfucking mouth shut, that one still needed to sink in. So Black was dating this chick, right? Let's call her Angela. And Angela was the shit, super cool and fine as hell. I think she saw me as a little brother because we had that kind of rapport. This was right around the time of the whole beeper incident, but summer was over and I was back in the hood. My cousins were dipping in and out of the Ville doing their thing, and Black started messing with this girl who stayed around the way. Well, one day I was over there. One day I was over at those basketball courts when Angela walked up like, "Hey, Lil J, you know what Black gonna be back? You know when Black's gonna be back in town?" Because I was young and naive, I didn't think twice before telling her the truth. Like, shit, he's been here. He was at my granny's house with one of his girls just the other day. Oh, yeah, she said. What's the girl's name? And that's how she played me. The next time I saw Black, he was busting around my grandmother. He was busting through my grandmother's front door like, "Look, Jay, where the fuck you at?" I lit out the back and just kept running. I didn't know what he wanted, but I could tell the tone of his voice that I didn't want to know. He chased me all over the hood until I finally looked over my shoulder and saw he wasn't there. I bent over to catch my breath, and that's when a couple of my friends walked up talking about, "Man, what's going on? What did you do?" and all that. Then one of my other little partners came up like, "Yo, you know your cousin around the corner mixing up a big bowl full of dog shit." I was like, "Dog shit? Man, what the fuck for?" Next thing I know, Black came turn around the corner with a big ass bowl in his hand. Everybody took off running. My friends thought it was funny, but I knew Black wasn't playing. He starts chasing me through the streets again. By this time, Black wasn't about, by this time Black wasn't about to lose. It was all eyes on us when bam, he grabbed me and dumped that whole bowl of dog shit right on my head. Right when I was gagging off the smell, he hit me with a roundhouse kick right to the chest that knocked me straight into the tree. I don't know how that motherfucker knew karate, but he damn sure got me with that one. Knocked the breath right out of me, too. Then he jumped on top of me and just started wailing. Blow after blow. He was like, "Motherfucker, don't you ever tell on me. And don't you ever tell on your family." I was crashed in a ball, pleading my case. I was just telling her where you was. No, no, this how shit go. He kept hitting me. Bam, bam, bam. You don't tell. You don't steal. And you damn sure better respect me. "Okay, okay, okay," I screamed. When he finally stopped, I looked up and saw him standing over me. "And don't you ever forget it either," he said. And then he walked away. I slowly picked myself up, limped back to my grandmother's house. I smelled like shit. My whole body hurt like hell. Even worse, everybody in the hood had seen the whole thing. When my grandmother saw me coming up the drive, she stepped outside and waved at me like, "Come on here, baby. It's gonna be all right." Granted, he embarrassed me in front of all my friends outside, but she knew the stakes. My cousins were always helping her out, paying bills and giving her a little extra cash, and she wasn't the only one in the family they were helping like that either. For the most part, everybody knew what was up. "You can't be telling people about what they're doing, okay, baby?" she said as she helped me get cleaned up. "Their business is their business, just like yours is yours. It's no one else's concern." And that's how I learned: stay loyal and keep your motherfucking mouth shut. That's it. Of chapter 2, Adversity for Sale. Thank you for tuning in to my channel. Like and subscribe if you want to. And come back. I'll be starting on chapter 3 in another video. So come on back. You gotta believe.